The mighty drill. Probably the first power tool you ever owned. Most likely the first power tool you ever used. And I'd bet money it's probably the one that you're using wrong the most. I know because I did it for years myself. Stripped screws, burnt up drill bits, dead batteries after a few months. I blamed the batteries, I blamed the brands, I blamed the bits, but truth is, it was always me. Today, we're gonna fix all that because I'm gonna show you the top 10 mistakes that almost all beginners make, and even some seasoned veterans who've been using drills for 20 years are probably still making 2 or 3 of these mistakes. And stick with me because mistake number 10 is probably costing you the most money, and it's quite possibly the most dangerous thing you can do with a drill. Absolutely terrifying. Now, the drill is one of the most versatile and useful tools that you're going to have in your shop. And it was one of the first power tools that I ever bought myself. And once you fix these mistakes, it's going to last you twice as long, your projects are going to come out twice as clean, and you're going to stop wasting money on screws, bits, and even batteries. Let's go. Mistake number 1, ignoring the clutch. Now, this right up front is the chuck. So you'll see where it tightens down on bits, driver bits, drill bits, that's the chuck. Behind it though is the clutch. And you'll see a random row of numbers from 1, sometimes to 11, sometimes to 16. And I bet most of you watching probably never even touched this. You usually have it just set on the top number and you just use the drill. And that is a big problem for a lot of people. It's why your screws are stripping out, it's why you're breaking your bits, it's why you're snapping screws off, it's why you're wearing out your drill bits faster than you should. It all has to do with these numbers. Let me show you exactly what this does and how to use it. Now I've got the clutch on this drill set at 5. This is a 4-inch long screw into some white oak. If you hear the clicking, that means the clutch is doing its job. It basically stops the drill from overdriving according to that setting. Now, if you want it to go deeper or drive the screw deeper, you just crank up the torque a higher number. It still clicks right as the head of that screw hits the top of the wood. If you want it to go deeper, you just continue to increase the number on your clutch. Once you find the right clutch setting, you can drive 100 screws and they should all come out exactly the same, unless of course you hit a knot hole or something different like that in the wood. But for the most part, it lets you not overdrive the screws and then put them at the perfect spot. So if you're driving them flush, however you need to drive your screw, it's going to help you get a more accurate result every single time. Now, it depends on the length of screw, the size of screws that you're using is what the setting is going to be, and the type of wood you're going to be drilling into. And if you use different lengths of screws, that setting could be different. A very long 4-inch screw, it's going to take a lot more power to get all that screw down into the wood versus this little 1.25-inch screw. I had to back the torque settings off so that it didn't overdrive and strip it. In other words, strip out the wood fibers and it just spins in the hole. You don't want to do that. That's why the clutch is there. Now, also on the clutch, you might see other icons like a drill bit and a hammer. What do those mean? Well, a drill bit is specifically meant for drilling holes, not necessarily driving screws. While you can set it on drill and drive the screw, a lot of times you'll just strip the screw out. But the drill is meant for drilling holes. So you put that in there so that the clutch doesn't activate while you're trying to drill a hole and you can drill that hole cleanly. Now, not all drills are hammer drills. Now, like this rigid drill only goes to drill mode. You don't have hammer mode like you do on a lot of other drills. Rigid does have hammer drills as well, but if you're not careful and you pick up the wrong drill in the box store, you might accidentally get one that's not a hammer drill. Why would you need hammer mode? The hammer drill part is mainly meant for masonry. So if you're drilling into concrete with masonry bits, then you would put that on hammer mode, and that basically gives it a little bit of an impact, and you can hear it when you're drilling into stuff. It almost sounds like the clutch or even an impact driver driving a screw. It has that hammer sound to it. It's adding vibration or hammering to that bit so that it drives through concrete and masonry much easier. All right, driving the screw with drill mode activated, this just sounds very smooth. Driving a screw in hammer mode. You hear that vibration? That's that hammering. Now, before we get to mistake number 2 through 10, if you'd like to check out any of the drills or the bits or accessories that I show today, links in the description and pinned comment. Of course, my TV viewers can scan the QR code with their phone, takes you right to my website so you can find these easily. Now, mistake number 2 is one that I still make to this day, the chuck. Now, a lot of times I get in a hurry and I just throw a bit in there and I chuck it tight. In other words, we're tightening down the chuck around the bit. If you're not careful, especially on smaller bits, it can chuck in there wrong. In other words, only 2 of those 3 teeth will grab the bit and it'll be wobbly. While this is an exaggerated view here, it can happen where it's just barely out and that could cause you to break your bit, drill a wobbly hole. Like, it's just not cool. So if it's really wobbly, you got to get it fixed. Make sure you just chuck it in there perfectly where all three of those teeth come down and bite that bit and hold it in place with even pressure all the way around. Now, if you're using like driver bits and things like that, even some drill bits have this driver, quarter-inch driver bit fitting on the end. Those are less likely to bite off or bite crooked in there. It'll usually tighten down on those much more evenly because of the shape is not round like a drill bit. I also typically will use the drill itself to speed up the tightening process, but there are some who just like to twist it down. It doesn't matter. Just be careful because it can burn your hands if you're new to this and not expecting it. So, yeah. Also, to be mistake, it's not even a mistake. You can't pick the drill up without doing that. That's a rule. Mistake number 3, the speed setting. On top of your drill, on almost all drills, you'll see a flip switch up there. Typically it's 1 or 2. Some drills like this DeWalt have 3. That's a speed setting. In other words, the lower the number, the slower the speed of this hole spinning is going to happen. Now, why would you want that? If you're drilling into wood, almost always the higher the speed is going to give you a cleaner hole. If you're drilling at a slow speed, the bit basically has to gnaw out the wood versus cutting through it. That drill bit is meant to cut through the wood, and you'll see those shavings if you're drilling at a high speed. Fun fact, the faster you can spin, within reason, a pocket hole bit, the cleaner hole you're going to get. So if you've been using your drill on a slower speed, 2 drill pocket holes, you might see a lot more tear out, or any hole really. But if you turn that speed up to as high as it can go, max it out when you're drilling the holes, you'll get a cleaner cut in most cases. So why do they have the lower speed? Well, specifically for metal, a lot of times you want to spin those bits a lot slower and let the drill bit do the work. You'll put a little more pressure on metal as well versus a little less pressure on wood. But drilling into metal is just better if you do it slower speeds. The heat doesn't build up as fast. Heat is the enemy of most all cutting tools, so you can keep that heat down with that slower setting. Obviously, the bigger the bit, the more material you're going to be removing, so you might want to adjust the speed on those as well. Now, almost every drill has a variable speed trigger. In other words, I can barely pull it and the drill barely moves. And as you pull the trigger harder, obviously the faster it goes. Now the setting on top, the 1, 2, sometimes 3, just limits the top end of the RPMs allowed by the drill. Take something like a big old Forstner bit that's going to be removing a lot of material. Sometimes spinning it fast will actually burn the wood or the holes depending on the material that you're drilling into. So you may need to slow the speed on those. And of course, these big old wood aisle bits, they drill some of the cleanest holes I've ever seen. They're just seriously impressive in what they can do for the price. But these typically do better if you spin them fairly quickly. But I have noticed in some material, if I set the drill setting on a 1, I get a much cleaner hole with these. Then if you're just using regular twist bits, if you start the hole slow, like you see right here on this 2x4, it actually tears out a lot of that wood when it starts out, so it's going to leave a messy start to that hole. If you spin it faster, just full speed right out of the gate, it's going to suck right through it, and it's going to actually leave a cleaner hole, especially on top. This is a drill, but this is an impact. These are not the same things at all, but they can be used for driving screws in different applications. In other words, if you're going to be installing cabinet hardware or even driving pocket hole screws or tiny brass screws, you don't want to pick up an impact. That's not what these are for. These impacts will drive deck screws like nobody's business, or big old lag bolts or long screws extremely fast. They're made for that. It's what you use them for. But if you're going to be doing more delicate work, you don't want to strip out a hinge screw on your cabinet. So that's what this torque setting or clutch setting is for on these drills. So you want to make sure you're picking up the right tool for the job. Now, I'm as guilty as anybody because I have drove thousands of pocket hole screws with an impact driver. Did I strip some out? Yeah, I did. And that's not fun because it's very, if you don't know, it's very hard to get a pocket hole screw out of a pocket hole after you've stripped it. General rule of thumb, a drill is great for drilling holes, obviously, and small screws. Impact, better for bigger screws, lag bolts, that sort of thing. Mistake number 5, using the wrong drill bit for the job. Which bit you use depends on what you're going to be doing. First off, twist bits, they're called. It's just a standard drill bit. You're going to use these for drilling pilot holes, general drilling of holes, different things up to a certain size. Most all shops are going to have these. You can buy them in little sets like this DeWalt or this big multi-set I have here. A link to everything I have in the description here. But these are really good just to have around because especially these tiny ones, they tend to break fairly regularly. So having an assortment of those for different pilot holes is very handy to have. About as handy as a shirt pocket. Brad point bits, they're kind of like twist bits, except for they have a tiny little point on there called a Brad point. What that little tip is for is drilling precise holes where you need them. You'll take a center punch, punch your hole. I have a spring-loaded one I use all the time. It's perfect for wood. Puts a little dent in it, right exactly where I mark. And then that little Brad point will stick right in that little indention, and then you can drill the hole. Matter of fact, because these are so sharp, you really don't even need that indention. That indention works really well for twist bits, but because that's so sharp, you can put that right on your mark and start your hole. Typically, it'll stay exactly on that mark. Forstner bits, I think every wood shop should have a set of Forstner bits. I have a couple of sets here. These are wildly expensive. Wildly expensive. These are Fish Wave Cutter Forstner bits. I've had this set for a few years. I bought it, I think on Amazon or somewhere. They're very expensive, but they cut extremely clean holes. And they stay sharp a long time because they're using good quality metal. But if you're on a budget and you don't want to spend all that money on a Forstner bit set, especially if it's your first one, this one is perfect. It's around $50, $60 if I remember right. This is an Irwin set. It comes with basically all the size of Forstner bits up to about 2 inches that you're going to need for in and around the shop. These are excellent, especially if you need to drill a hole on an angle or if you need a flat bottom hole. In other words, you're not drilling all the way through. These are just excellent bits to have in the shop. And of course, the one I showed earlier, the Wood Owl Overdrive bits, these are called auger bits. They have a Brad point on them as well. These drill some of the fastest and cleanest holes I've ever seen, even on the backside. Now you can blow the backside out. In other words, have tear out with the wood splinters and stuff if you push too hard or if the material's just not right. But these are just genius the way they drill such clean holes. Of course, if you add backer boards or other options to help you prevent that tear out, it works even better. But these are crazy good to have. There's also countersink bits, perfect for wood applications because you want to countersink the head of that screw. You'll drill the main hole and the countersink bit basically just creates a pocket for the head of that screw to go into. Self-centering drill bits are really good if you do a lot of cabinets because you just put it on the cabinet hardware and drill, it centers itself in there. Really nice, convenient to have. Step bits, if you're drilling into metal, these are really good for widening holes very quickly and it works really well. Spade bits, I'm not a fan of spade bits in the wood shop. They have their purpose in some applications, but for most things, they're actually meant for rough construction. In other words, drilling through a stud in a wall to run electrical or plumbing or something like that. I have a set, I just rarely use them because all the other drill bits I've mentioned before are better suited for woodworking. And of course, hole saws, I have a whole hole saw kit here. These things are kind of annoying to use because they do burn the wood if they're not sharp, and they don't stay sharp very long. But it's always handy to have a hole saw kit because you can get some big holes drilled out with a hole saw kit where Forstner bits just don't go that big. And of course, driver bits, everybody needs a set of driver bits. My name is Matt and I have a driver bit problem. I have so many sets of driver bits from Milwaukee, Makita, DeWalt, Ryobi. If I see them, I buy them. I have a problem, but I never lack on having bits. I always have the right bit if I need it. Mistake number 6 is skipping the setup tricks. Using your drill, there are some tricks you can use to get better results. For instance, if you use a center punch like I talked about earlier, you can put an indentation exactly where the hole needs to go so it doesn't move and walk around on you. It's really good to have one of those. They're very inexpensive and just useful. Painter's tape for a depth stop on a drill bit is absolutely useful. Use this dozens and dozens of times. Basically, you know the depth of your hole. Maybe it's the screw length. Maybe it's just the hole that you're drilling. You can just put a piece of painter's tape around your drill bit and stop when the drill bit gets to the tape. It's just an easy depth stop. Backer boards are really useful if you don't want to tear out the back side of the hole you're drilling. A lot of times when you're drilling through, you'll see it'll tear the wood out. It'll make a really ugly mess. If you put a backer board behind that and drill through the board that you're going through into the backer board, you'll get a cleaner result. If you can't use a backer board, drill from the front until you see the tip of the drill bit start coming out the back, then go around to the back side, drill from the other way, and you got clean holes on both sides. If you're drilling near the end of a board, a pilot hole is absolutely necessary to keep that board from splitting. You're just going to use a bit that's slightly smaller than your screw. You're going to drill all the way through, and then you can install your screw into the end of the board. That way it doesn't split like this, because that's very frustrating. Mistake number 7, not using attachments that make your drill 10 times more useful. First up, the right angle drill attachment. Now, I think several different people make these. I've had this DeWalt one for a very long time. Before that, I had another DeWalt one that I used bunches and bunches of times. I still have it. They just don't wear out. They're just really good tools. And they're very, very inexpensive. I can't believe they're this cheap for what they do. Basically, you're just going to put your drill bit or driver bit in one side, the right angle side. The other side goes right into your drill or impact. That's going to let you get into some extremely tight spaces. I use this all the time when building projects with pocket holes and I need to get into between the two legs of a project to drive that screw in. Just crazy useful to have in the shop. Or even better, if you have the budget, is picking up something like this. It's a 5-in-1 or 4-in-1 drill. A bunch of people make these. DeWalt has one, Bosch has one, Milwaukee has the installation driver. This just happens to be the DeWalt here. I'll link to all of them in the description, but you get a right angle drill attachment, very similar to this, as you see. You also get an offset drill attachment. You get a typical drill chuck, and you get an impact. Not necessarily an impact, but it does accept 1/4-inch bits. And all of these just interchange onto the drill itself, so you can pop one off, pop one on, and it just depends on what you need. This could be the only drill that you buy. If you're new to this and you're just wanting to get something that kind of does it all, something like this could be the perfect setup. Or if you need a drill press, in other words, you need to drill exact straight up and down holes every single time, or on an angle every single time, you need to replicate that over and over, you should check out something like a portable drill press. Milescraft makes one, Craig makes one, a lot of people make them, but they basically just attach to your drill, or you attach your drill to it, and then you can just make repeatable, accurate cuts. If you just need to make sure that your holes are straight up and down every single time, you should check out something like this very inexpensive Craig drill guide. This allows you to keep your drill straight up and down as you drill your holes, so you get perfect 90-degree holes every single time. Also, dowel jigs are a great accessory to have with a drill. Like these Jessom dowel jigs, if you want to basically up your game in joinery, it's a good way to do it, and they just work well with the drill. Mistake number 8 that a lot of people make is just buying cheap bits, like by the hundreds, especially if you're going to be using them a lot. Now there are these kits that, like I have this whole set, it's not very expensive. There's a bunch of the same size bits in this kit, which is why I picked it up. But if you buy the smaller kits that only have like 6 or 8, 10 bits in them, and you're not spending much money on them, like a couple dollars, they're not going to last long. They're going to drill really bad holes. Typically, the higher cost of the bits, the better metal they're using to make the drill bits themselves, so they stay sharp longer and they drill cleaner holes most of the time. I just stick to the name brands like DeWalt, Makita, Milwaukee, those types. Mistake number 9, I make it all the time. You're just going to eyeball it. Like, I'm just going to make sure I drill the exact spot, and you miss, and it just looks like crap. Don't eyeball it. Make the mark. Use a center punch if you need to. Brad point bits. Anything to help you get a better looking hole, because it could ruin a project fast. Ask me how I know. Mistake number 10, the single worst thing you can do with a drill, and it's not even when you're using it, it's after you're done with it. It's the most dangerous thing that you can do with a drill. It's also just terrible for the part itself, and that is, take this battery off and you throw it in the charger and you leave. It's very dangerous. I'm telling you, there has been a lot of people lose their homes and their shops due to fires because the battery charger or the battery failed to shut itself off, and it just keeps charging until these overheat and explode. I'm not saying DeWalt or any name brand. It has happened to so many people. I've seen it online. I see it fairly regularly. Somebody's shop burns down, or the house burns down, or catches on fire. And the ultimate culprit, when they go back and investigate it, is the batteries were left on the charger. Do not do that. Set a timer so you can come back and get them. I typically don't like to leave mine unattended, so only if I'm in the shop working will I charge the battery, and before I go in for the day, I will make sure to try to remove them. Look, I'm guilty of sometimes forgetting. It's a very dangerous thing. Please try to remember to take the batteries, no matter what brand you have, off the charger before you leave unattended. Not only is it dangerous, it's also not great for the battery just to stay on the charger all the time. The batteries are meant to basically be run down to some point and then charged back up. It keeps the cells moving or something. I don't know, it's science. But you shouldn't just leave them at full all the time. And as far as battery health goes, if you want these to last the longest, I know this isn't always possible, but if you can keep them at a decent temperature, in other words, not at extremes, not an extreme cold, not an extreme heat, but in a general decent environment, not wet, that sort of thing, these batteries will last longer. And if they get very cold, they don't work as well. I tested this actually. I threw a couple batteries in the freezer and then tried to drill with them. It was obvious the power difference was there. The regular room temperature batteries perform way better than the cold batteries. And when they get excessively hot, it also hurts them as well. So if you can, I know on job sites, in certain shops you can't, but if you can, if you keep them at a normal temperature, they'll just last longer. Let's not kid ourselves. These batteries are not cheap. No matter what brand you go with, batteries are expensive, tools are expensive, and I want to help you save the most money possible, which is why I created the Morning Cut. It's a daily tool deal email that I send out every single morning. It's absolutely free to sign up. All you got to do is click the first link in the description or that pinned comment, sign up for the Morning Cut, look for those tool deals. If this video is helpful to you, you have to watch. Never buy the wrong screw, because most beginners do. Click that box, get you the big old virtual fist bump. And that rhymed.